Hey, I'm Jeff the Junk Seller, and this presentation is going to be about the flea market that I did today, Saturday, May 23rd of 2026. The market was called Treasure City Flea Market, and it happens down in Waco, Texas. The market they have it on both Saturdays and Sundays. You can pay for one day or or the other or both if you should choose to. I only wanted to set up out there for one day. I got a security issue that I'm having to work on. Needed to be back to Canton, but I went out there. This was my first time at that market. I've shopped that market before, and mostly it's Hispanics, but I've heard that you can take pretty good collectible stuff and be able to sell it there. And I took some stuff out there, and I did pretty well. I was able to wholesale some stuff off. One of the things is you always sell really well when you're the new guy. And I'd never sold at that market before. I have shopped it before without much success, but I get there, and I didn't bring enough stuff. For one thing, the tables that are available to you, they have them built into the site. When you pay for your space, it's about a 20 by 20 space, and they had heavy duty tables that were built in, and there was a 4 foot by 16 foot table. You get a 4 foot by 17.5 foot table, and then there's a 3 foot by 14 feet or so steel table. And there's an awful lot of space. I only had enough to really. I could have brought about 2/3 more. I brought about a third of what I could have actually crammed into that space. But the market was a bit off from the people that were there that explained to me that they felt like it was probably due to the holidays or due to the weather forecast. When I planned on going out there, I had to do it because I absolutely had no money. I did pretty well at Buffalo Gap, but I got back. I had to pay my storage rent, and I had to pay for tires and 2 tires, and I had to buy a tank of gas, and I spent $100 on inventory, and I was out of money already. I bought enough fuel to get me to the market, and then when I got there, I still had $30 to my name. I didn't buy breakfast in the morning because I feared that I would go there and they would tell me that the booth rent had been raised to like $25. If that had been the case, if I'd bought breakfast, I wouldn't have been able to afford the booth space, and I was out of gas. I'm in a mess, but anyway, I get there, and I had $11 to my name when I set up, and you have to have a tax ID number. They process you. You fill out an application. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on with that. You got to sign a couple of documents. But I get there, and she gives me a pretty good space. One where I could park the van next to behind my space. Not all, you can't do that with most of them, but you can do that with some on a couple of the rows. And she got me in a row where I could do that. And but I go out there. The weather forecast had been pretty good, and then it started turning sour. And then I go out there. I'm almost there, and I stop at a rest area at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and it starts raining, and it rained really hard, and it rained for a while. And the forecast said that we were going to have rain in the morning through the market day. And thankfully, there was no rain. It was awfully humid. It's humid right now. But, I got out there, and I got set up, and I was able to, the Texas tool tags, or the Texaco tool tags that I have, I sold 38 of them to one guy for $60, and I sold 5 of them for $10 to another guy. So I made $70 in sales on that. I bought 2,700 of those for $100, and they just keep paying almost every show that I go to. I make I make at least $50 on them. But I had Dragon Ball Z cards. They were some kind of movie promo, and something that I've been selling on eBay. I sell the 3-pack set on eBay for $12, and by the time fees and costs work out, I get $5.48. At the flea market, I sell the 3-card set for $5. But a guy came along and he looked at them, took some pictures, called a buddy, and then he came back to me. He said, "Hey man," he said, we want to buy them all. What will you do for all of them?" And I have bulk deals on eBay too, but we counted them out, estimated that there were 275 packs of cards there, and I told him I'd take 120 for them, and his buddy said, "Yeah, get them for me." And he's going to be a good buyer on sports related stuff. He bought a sterling pin from me that looked like a riding crop and a riding hat for equestrians. So and I had it marked 18, and he asked if I'd take 15. I didn't have any problem with that. That was a respectful offer, and it was light in sterling. But anyway, he's going to be a good buyer on sports stuff, and his friend that he was buying for is going to be a good buyer on Dragon Ball Z and Yu-Gi-Oh, that kind of stuff, pop culture stuff. And I told him that I would have more of it when I came out the next time. I didn't know whether I'd be there in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, but I am going to plan on making that market again. Everybody said that it was off. I still did $400. I made enough money that I can survive until I have to get down to Kerrville. I'll be able to pay my rent and all that other stuff down there at Kerrville. But I had 20 pieces of cast iron that I tried wholesaling to a guy that I like, that he's in direct competition with the guy that I don't like down at Buffalo Gap. And I offered them to him for $120 through his sister. He didn't show up because he had graduation. But I had them at this market, and a guy came along, and he's just, the first thing he started doing is just poo-pooing on the stuff. Oh, it's pitted. Oh, it's this, it's that. These skillets aren't any good. All this kind of crazy stuff. And I told him I really didn't care to hear it. I said, yeah, they're in better condition than what you say they are. I said, but if you want them, I said, the prices that are marked on there, it's a couple of $100. I think is like $300. I said, I would take for all of them. I said, I'll even give you the milk crate that they came in. I said, I'll give them to you for $130. And he said, I'd like to buy them at 100. And I was like, yeah, no, 130 is where I need to be. He said, you can't meet me in the middle at like 120. I was like, no, I 130. I said, you either buy it or you don't. And he went ahead and paid, But whenever you have a guy like that, he was just trying to steal money. He was willing to pay the 130. He just wanted to see if he could short me on the transaction. And I'm going to tell you, as much as I look for a bargain, I don't do that to guys. And I had an incident a couple of days ago in Abilene that I'll explain in a later video, a video that will come on after this one, that shows exactly that. If a guy asks a price that I can afford to pay, then I just go ahead and pay it. But that's why I really, at $120, I would have preferred to have kept that stuff and sold it to my guy down in Buffalo Gap rather than sell it to this guy. He just was kind of smucky, I had those sales. Now the fee was only $19. I sold $403 worth of stuff. It's only 122 miles from Canton. I'll probably be using WACO whenever I need to fill in a weak spot in my schedule. But I had a guy that came along, and he tried to buy silver from me, and he quoted me some crazy price, and he told me that he only sells for 60% of melt. I said, are you kidding? I said, I wouldn't even admit that if I was selling for 60% of melt. I said, you ought to be at least getting 85. That guy's screwing you. And there was a Mexican guy there that was watching me tell this guy that he was a dummy. And I told him, "Man, that's stupid as hell, dude. I wouldn't sell for 60." And that guy just smirked because I was handing this guy his I was letting him know he shouldn't be in business. And I don't know where he was coming with that stuff, but he came back later and asked about another bit of silver, and he just was not happy that I knew what the value of this stuff was. And he told me, he said, I scrap at 60%. I was like, I don't care. Why would I care? My price is still my price. I don't, whatever dilemma that you got to work yourself through. I said, that's really none of my business. And he was waiting for me to come with a counter, and there just was no counter to that. I don't care. I have to have what I have to have, or I'll keep it. And I think that a lot of the shoppers out there aren't used to a guy like me who will strap them on and keep them on. I don't have to sacrifice anything. Even when I'm broke, I don't have to sacrifice anything. There's a better way to wiggle your way out of a problem. And but I got there. I didn't have any money. By 8 o'clock in the morning, you start setting up about. I got in about 6:45, 7 o'clock, something like that. I had my space assigned to me, and by 8 o'clock in the morning, I had $150. I'd sold some of the Desperate Brother signs, and I sold. I'm not even sure what else I sold. I think I sold tool tags. I think, but I had $150 to my credit by the time 8 o'clock rolled around, and I really wasn't stressed about it. And I didn't make a whole lot of sales, but the sales that I did make were substantial. And I think that I'm going to have to do that sale again. I'm looking forward to the next time. I shot a little video, showed how my tables were really, really vacant. There's some bottles in there that I only bought yesterday. I got those from John Lundblad. He's a national level dealer. I think he got 600 and some odd soda bottles, and some of those are like 10 and 20, even $25 a piece, and he sold them to me for $1 a piece. I spent $100 with him, but I only had to give him 40 because I took him 6 soda crates so that he could sell bottles out of soda crates. And 6 soda crates is $60. But we made that little exchange, and I was happy with it. I heard about these soda bottles 2 months ago, and I just haven't been able to get the money up to get there and get any. But that was my experience with this WACO flea market, this Treasure City flea market, and I think that it's a good one. Even though that we had weather and we had the holiday that I think were working against us. But I'm going to be out there again in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and I will be presenting a video about how the contacts that I had work out, whether those actually come through. They don't always, but I believe that these guys on the Dragon Balls and the sports memorabilia are going to. And next time I hope I just have more traffic. I'm going to take some more mid-century modern stuff next time, because that's the kind of market. It's almost Austin-like in Waco. It was some of the shoppers that show up out there. They like kind of the same stuff. What do they call it? Millennials. They're chasing kind of the same stuff that they're chasing down in Austin. But I got an awful lot of stuff. I need to try to empty my units out. But I'll be doing some presentations on that in the future. But if you've enjoyed this content, then please view some of my other videos, some other presentations. And if you like those as well, then please subscribe. But thank you for viewing.